For the NFL, there's a couple of new rules that they have established in their annual league meeting of just about everybody in the staff. They met in Palm Beach, Florida, and they're discussing what's going to happen before 2025. They do this every year where they kind of just round out the season, do expectations, see what they want to change in football, what they want to keep the same. And there's an interesting rule that they came up with to do with kickoffs. We saw that the kickoffs actually changed in 2024, then 2023, and it reduced a lot of injury. Now, concussions were a super prevalent thing on kickoffs before. That was the safety thing that they wanted to get rid of. They're trying to make the game safer, and there's a lot of things they're changing. And we could see even more changes to the game with safety in the coming years. But as of right now, the statistic for 2023 to 2024, it dropped 43% for concussions on kickoffs. That's incredible.
It's enormous. Yeah.
I mean, like, if they keep continuing to do that and make the game safer, we could see people play like Tom Brady. Like, we could see more Tom Brady's of football.
Absolutely.
People playing until they're 40-something.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept because where a lot of people are, like you're bringing up the safety statistics, but a lot of the statistics I was reading about actually focuses more on returnability in the kickoff. So they noticed I think it was something like a 21 to 25% to, I do hide snacks in my beer, by the way. The concept is that they're promoting it as a more offensive driven way to go about things, which I find interesting because when you start to see those kickoff returns and you try and force the returns back, I think that's where you start to see the injuries. That's why over the years they've gotten rid of certain elements like the wedge, making sure that the touchbacks were going to the 20-yard line to give the offense a fighting shot and stuff like that. So it's interesting the way, Connor, you're bringing up safety, and then the other statistics that they're bringing up is more action for the game. So it's going to be an interesting way that they're going to go about it in the future, but definitely much safer. And I think potential to have bigger returns and bigger plays on that kickoff return.
I'm really glad you brought that up because we haven't really talked about what the rule actually states. We've only really talked about what's going to happen or what's projected to happen. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm going to bring that up. For the 2025 season, the big rule is that touchbacks are now going to be placed at the 35-yard line. You kick it at the 35-yard line, it gets touched back, the other team's going to get it at the same, not the same spot, but the other side on the 35.
Correct.
As well. But you talk about it's going to bring more action to kickoffs because that was something that was so boring. That is the big complaint that people got is I skipped through kickoffs. You even heard MJ whenever the rule even happened. He said, I don't even watch the kickoff anymore. I missed the first half of the game because I won't sit there and anticipate a football game if I got to watch it start off with the kickoff like that. So now, if we look at the percentages, the kickoff return rate for 2024 was 32.8%. The projected kickoff return rate for 2025 is anywhere between 70 and 75%. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, because no defensive coordinator wants to give an extra 15 yards on the beginning of the drive. So that makes it that much more difficult for the defense to take care of the ball, to stop you from crossing the 50. It changes the entire dynamic of a drive defensively if you're giving the offense an extra 15 yards on top of, giving them the initial. I think last year it was the 30, and the years before that it was like the 25 and the 20. So it's getting progressively worse to kick the ball all the way through the end zone, or at least not into the receiving zone, I think is what they call it. So it's going to make it for a much more dynamic, which is what they're calling it, kickoff and kick return.
Which Jackson's in the background. He did ask a question. I do have questions about this. Football's my sport, so this is something I always watch. Kickoff, I've sat down in 30 minutes before a football game to anticipate that game. Like, I have seen kickoffs. I've seen them from last year, and they're not great to watch. To be frank, I didn't anticipate it. I'm with MJ. I didn't anticipate it as much as I used to because I have to watch a kickoff like that. But Jackson raises a good point. Why make it more valuable to take a touchback at the 35? Wouldn't it moving it back to the 25 to 20 make returns more valuable? And I get what you're saying, Kenny, about the defense not having to prepare for that extra 10, 15, 20 yards. But if you think about it, 35-yard line, that is great field position for an offensive unit. Like, we're giving offenses a chance to excel for any measure now because they're having an extra 10 yards. I mean, it was 5 yards from last year. We're going to keep inching it up and up and up till eventually they're going to be at the 50-yard line. They're going to be able to throw one pass and be at the end zone. Like, what can you answer these questions, Kenny? Like, all these things that are going through my head right now is this beneficial to the game, or will it just cause it to be an offensive game?
So it depends on which side of the track that you're on with this. The game has been shifting more offensively for probably, I would say, the past 30 years. It's just been shifting more and more offense. You see that with the different types of penalties, the BS targeting calls that I absolutely hate, the pass interference, defensive holding. All these new rules are all designed to engage the offense more. Why? Because the viewership notice, the talking heads notice that viewers go up when there's a high score on the offensive side, and the defense is less and less. They'll sit there and say that it's all safety related, and some of it is. I give them that. But the vast majority is that people like to see, just like in baseball, right? You like to see the home runs. You don't necessarily like to see the no-hitters and the high strikeout games. So you want to see more offense. That's why they're shifting it more and more. I think, to your point, though, I almost think this is the last-ditch effort to keep kickoff in the game, to keep it part of the traditional game. Otherwise, you might as well just start the offense automatically at the 35 and get rid of the kickoff entirely. If it's truly a safety thing, then that's the way it needs to go.
I definitely agree, because if you look at it, we covered the tush push ban. Go check it out if you haven't seen that video yet. And one of the big things was that I asked Nate, is this going to make the game more competitive if you ban this? And with the new rule if we look at the OT rule, I'd say yes, that makes very much the regular season more competitive, especially if you're 1, 2, 3 games out from the playoffs and you're trying to get that final spot if you don't have a playoff seed clinched. So now we're looking at it as the tush push. If it gets banned, why aren't people getting rewarded for making this play? This should be a play that is being rewarded. This is art in front of our eyes. But now we get into this play and this rule where, is this new kickoff rule going to make more games competitive? Is it going to make the sport competitive, or is it going to be and create this one-sided type of game?
Well, I think that's a good point, and I think what you're going to see, and this is why the NFL thinks that the return rate is going to jump up to 70%, is that the defensive coordinator is going to talk to the special teams coordinator and say, listen, like, I can't afford 15 extra yards. You need to get them into a position where they have to force the return. The amount of big play returns isn't going to be necessarily that much greater than what you already have, but you're going to make sure that you get a play out of the deal. You're going to get contact. You're going to get excitement out of it so that lures the audience back in, right? You say yourself, you don't pay attention as much to the kickoffs anymore. Neither does MJ. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's just a boring play. At least with this, you're getting a more interesting opportunities for your play. The tush push, I completely disagree with. I think that is just because a lot of teams can't figure out how to stop it. And because it's not competitive, if nobody can stop it, that's why they're trying to push this anti-tush push agenda.
Well, then you get into the conversation of this kickoff rule. Usually we see kickers use the kickoff to kind of stretch their legs, to see how far they can kick it. Now we get into the certain variables of this 70 and 75% return rate, because certain things have to happen for a return to happen on a kickoff. Kickers are still going to be able to kick a touchback just as easy as they did last year and the year before that and the year before that. Now we're going to have to teach kickers almost a different game, a different style of play, to where, hey, I don't want you to kick it in the end zone. If you can kick it somewhere between the the end zone line in the 10 or the end zone line in the 5, that would be phenomenal. Now we're getting into a type of punting-esque strategy. How does that play into that, Kenny?
So I think right off the bat, they're already doing that in college football. Schools like Ohio State, when Urban Meyer was the head coach, and they were just starting to change the touchback rules in college football, he addressed his special teams as you need to get the ball to the end zone, but not into the end zone. And that's because if you call a fair catch in college, it'll automatically go to the 25. So his idea was if we can force the return team to run it out, that gives us a better chance at stopping them before they even get to the 20, let alone the 25. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility. And I think a few teams in college are already implementing these strategies, which will make those kickers more sought after when you get them into the draft situation. And so you're going to see, obviously they're not going to jump up to like the second or third round, but you're going to see kickers are going to become more prominent if they're accurate and less so if they just have a booming leg.
So I brought up that this is almost like a punting-esque strategy. Do you think we're going to see a lot more kind of two-way kickers? Is it going to have somebody? Because if we're talking about sheer accuracy on the football field, I know punting and kicking off a tee are two different things. It's two different ways of kicking the ball. But if somebody's accurate, Kenny, somebody's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So is there going to be a thing of if you're a great punter, you could possibly be a great kicker in the NFL?
I mean, I think you kind of see that too already. You've seen that definitely in the past where some teams employ just a field goal point after touchdown type kicker, and then the punter is actually the one that does most of the kicking duties for kickoffs, for safeties and stuff like that. So it's a little rare, but I definitely think that that's going to be a potential future in the NFL, especially if accuracy counts, right? If you have to get it within a certain yardage range, if you have to make sure it doesn't go out of bounds, and it has to be returnable, I think you're going to start to see a lot more, like I said, accuracy-based kickers as opposed to, cannon leg kickers, so to speak. I think it's a definite possibility.
And that might be the norm now. You said it's so rare and you're right. There are certain teams that have a punter do kickoffs. I can't even name some teams off the top of my head, but
currently I'm not sure if there are any, but I do know that in the past they've employed systems like that. It may not have even been a punter. I think teams back, a while ago would employ 3 different types of kickers on their team. Not the smartest strategy with only a 53-man roster necessarily, but you do what you have to do in order to win the games.
So it is rare that punters also do kickoffs. I've witnessed this, so I'm going to say that like you're right in that statement. But then we get to the point of, is it going to be more prominent? Are this rare thing we see that's so rare, is it going to become the norm in the coming years? Are punters going to have a lot more value? Are you going to only have to have one person that kicks the ball on your roster? Are you going to be able to free up 53 men? That's hard for teams to decide who's going to be their 53 guys. If you cut off one, you got a spot for somebody else that might be a little bit more valuable.
So I think that's a very good point, and I've actually suggested it before myself. I think there's a couple different ways to analyze it and to look at it. I think that I'm not entirely sure if the NFL has a specific rule where you need to have a labeled kicker and a labeled punter on your roster. But if there is no rule for that, I think that could absolutely become a norm in this league because the NFL is a copycat league. You watch what's going on, you figure out how can I implement these strategies onto my team? How can I implement these cost-saving strategies in the front office? And it very much becomes a thing very quickly. So from that perspective, if you can get away with only having one kicker on your roster and it would be a dual role and it's cost effective and play effective, I think you start to see that take like wildfire in the NFL because you could always use an extra receiver on the roster. You could always use an extra edge rusher, etc., or even an extra quarterback for some teams.
Well, especially with injuries too. I'm not sure of the number, but you only have a certain amount of players you can put on IR. So If you put them on IR, it takes away a spot from your 53. But if they're injured, say 4 or 5 weeks, and you can't put them on IR, then you're at the point of, well, then I just have to sit there and have somebody wasted, one of my 53 men for 4 or 5 weeks.
Right.
Maybe that's something that needs to change.
I think so. I think you absolutely. And just for the competition aspect for what I'm looking at, I think if you change those rules, you're getting more people involved in the game. You're getting, maybe not necessarily the best players, but you're giving new players a shot at, proving themselves in the league. So I think the whole, injured reserve and pup list, how they do that and how they organize the rosters, I think that should change if you're looking for improvements in your competition. I think that's the best strategy for that.